Coming up, the top 10 reasons why I've decided to recommend the 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe model range as one of the best 7-seater SUVs available. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, the place where Aussie new car buyers save thousands off their next new cars. Hit me up on the website for that. This is the end of my week-long evaluation of the Santa Fe Active. That would be the base model in the range. And the reason it's important for car reviewers to check out the base model as well as the fully loaded version is because it's down here in the cheap seats where you get to make a real assessment of value across the range. What a lot of manufacturers do, obviously, is they strip everything out down in the cheap seats so that they can economically, rationally go out and flog that vehicle to fleet buyers like government agencies and major corporations, and they can also launch advertising campaigns that go like this. From $29,990, drive away, right? So they get you into the dealership with the expectation of spending $29,990, and then the whole process involves just talking you up. A few thousand here, a few thousand there, and a few thousand here again, and all of a sudden, you walk out of the dealership having signed on the dotted line for 45 grand or something, and you go, how did that happen? That doesn't happen in this model range. The base model is very well equipped. So let's get into those reasons. If they did not already have a techie sounding name for adaptive cruise control, they could just call it magic, because that's essentially what it is. A radar unit up the pointy end activates when you turn adaptive cruise on, and then it has a look down there at the traffic status of the road ahead. When you come up on some congestion, let's say you're set at 110, couple of trucks are doing 90 in front of you, then the car automatically slows down and maintains a safe following distance if necessary for as long as that congestion is ahead. And then when you overtake, normal programming is resumed and you back up to 110 k's an hour. You can tweak the following distance using the switchgear on the steering wheel between two preset limits. You can drop back a little bit further, or you could get a little bit closer within that safe following distance envelope, so that's kind of nice. But be warned, if you have not used adaptive cruise control, it's a little bit like flying business class. Easy to go forward, damn hard to come back. You won't want to drive standard cruise control ever again. And offering it in the base model of a 7-seat SUV for early 40s is virtually unheard of in the car industry. So that's a real plus for the Santa Fe Active. The premium engine in the range is this one, the 2.2 diesel. And yes, you can get the 2.4 petrol with a 6-speed auto in the Active as well, but trust me on this, the diesel is the one to get if you can afford it. It's going to cost you another $3,000, but thankfully the premium engine is available in the base model. And there are plenty of model ranges where that simply is not the case. So I know there are consumer reservations about diesel engines at the moment, particularly considering the bad press that diesel has had for the past couple of years. And I'm looking at you, Volkswagen. Thanks very much for that. I don't get any complaints about diesel particulate filter problems with this Hyundai 2.2 diesel engine. It's been in the market for quite some time now. And B, there is no suggestion that they are going to ban diesels in Australia. What I'd suggest about diesels is they deliver massive low RPM power. They're about 25% more fuel efficient, you know, for an equivalent amount of driving. So there are both those things to consider, and they make this one at least, makes 440 Newton meters across quite a wide rev range. And out there on the road, there's not too many problems that you will encounter that 440 Newton meters will not solve. Safety is very important to the buyers of cars, and it's hard to have a shot at them for that. Santa Fe Active, very well equipped on that front. You've got your autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assistance. There's a reversing camera in every model as well. It's easy to forget that the buyers of base models are often second-class citizens on safety, but that is not the case here. And every time I talk this sort of thing up, like it's a big plus for safety, I always get some backlash. Somebody will say to me, I hate Big Brother looking over my shoulder. That's just the nanny state. I want my freedom, right? Well, I'd put it to you like this, if you're one of those complainants. Driving is the kind of activity where 99.9% is not a pass, not when it comes to avoiding disaster. You've got to do it 100% of the time. So let's say over the next 10,000 days, some event unfolds where you're not paying as much attention as you should be, and you get this confluence of worst case scenarios. The Swiss cheese theory, if you listen to Professor James Reason on this, the father of disaster research. All the holes line up, and a disaster just steams on through. Well, if one of these technologies just alerts you in that moment that something is wrong, and you do something that otherwise you would not have done, you take evasive action, or you don't change lanes, you get on the brakes earlier, or you just don't run over that kid in the driveway or that granny with a shopping trolley behind you, then I'd put it to you that all of that technology that might have niggled at you and stuck a little bit of a knife in between your ribs from time to time and annoyed the crap out of you, and you're susceptible to that irritation, in that moment where that disaster is sidelined, I'd suggest that all of that irritation is suddenly worth it. Of all those safety technologies that I just mentioned, there's one that occasionally really gets on my goat, okay? It's lane keeping assistance, and in particular, it's the active lane keeping assistance. And I'd have to say that I don't have a problem generally, or in fact ever, keeping the car in the intended lane, because I use the high-tech miracle of actually paying attention when I drive. I kind of think that's a moral imperative. Anyway, it can be quite disconcerting the first time you drive a car with this active lane keep assistance function, because the servo motor normally used for power assistance actually grabs the steering rack and moves the steering wheel in an attempt to assist you getting the car and keeping it in its intended lane. And occasionally I end up in this sort of war of wills with the active lane keep assist, where I want it to be somewhere and it wants it to be somewhere else. And inevitably it loses because I turn it off. And that's quite easy to do, thankfully. There's a simple button, you just hit it right down there and active lane keep assist goes off. And the reason I point this out, right, is because that these driver assist technologies are increasingly going to default to active every time you restart the car. And that is going to be the result of crash testing programs like ANCAP and the other NCAP authorities around the world. What they're going to require for 5-star certification is for these technologies to be active on startup by default. And that way, if you want them off, you're going to have to turn them off. Thankfully, though, you don't have to drill down into a menu system or take the car to a dealership or anything like that. If you want to be absolutely in control of the course that you want to chart between those white lines ahead, then all you have to do is reach down and turn the damn thing off. Huge plus, in my view at least, full-sized alloy spare wheel and tyre, at least in a place like Australia, where you might be several hundred kilometres from the place where you might get a replacement tyre or a repair. In these situations, you know, a full-size spare wheel and tyre mean that you can get straight back on the highway and drive at the full legally permitted speed. Most space savers, by comparison, are limited to 80 k's an hour. Not only that, they're narrow, they don't grip the road as well as a standard tyre, and this is a complete liability if you are on a dirt road, or if you, heaven forbid, are towing a 2,000 kilogram trailer, which you could conceivably be doing with exactly this car. And that's why you need to look at the spare tyre situation if you intend to do any of those things, remote area travel or heavy towing or both, because if you are encumbered with a space saver spare tyre, that can put a complete dent in your recovery plan. And it's also dead set dangerous, in my view, to get on the freeway with 110k an hour limit and mix it up with trucks and all kinds of people not paying attention, who are all potentially therefore approaching you from behind with a closing speed of 30k's an hour in the wet, at night, whatever. This is a bad look for safety, and thankfully with the Santa Fe you don't have to worry about that. Access back here to row 3 has been dramatically improved as well. There's a push button now on the seat base on row 2 on the curb side. So you open the door, you hit the button, the row 2 seat slides forward out of the way, and that gives you access back here to row 3. So that's a big improvement. If you've got these seats deployed and you've just been to the shops and bought something big and bulky, then there are push buttons back there in the cargo bay as well that allow you to fold either one or both of these seats forward to give you access to that big stuff that you've just bought, which is good. Now, as for the comfort back here in row 3, it's okay for short trips. I don't think anyone's going to be high-fiving it and going, yes, this is my seat across the Nullarbor, bring it on. That's not what these seats are designed for, pretty clearly. But, you know, for your kids' friends and the sporting trips and the endless family logistics and all of that stuff, the people, the friends, the relatives that you've got to carry, they're pretty good, and it really does increase the versatility of a vehicle like this. And when you fold flat that third seating row, the cargo bay is cavernous. By my estimation, 4, perhaps 5 dead bodies would fit in here below the level of the cargo blind. And big fat Western carnivores too, not those vegan pussies. There's a good news story for towing with Santa Fe as well. 2,000 kilos is the absolute towing limit, and the diesel engine with the 8-speed transmission is going to eat that for breakfast. The problem that you might find here in Australia is the disconnect between our trailers and their specifications and those in the rest of the world, because the rest of the world rolls with a 5% download on the ball. So 2,000 kilos on the trailer with 100 kilos on the ball. But here in Shitsville, we're more likely to roll with 10%, and that's going to be 200 kilos on the ball. As it rolls off the production line, Santa Fe comes with a 100 kilo download limit, and you must not exceed that. But because there is this disconnect, the engineers at Hyundai have done what they can to up the ante. You can buy the genuine load assist kit, which is quite affordable. It's essentially just a replacement set of variable rate rear springs, and that ups the ante to 150 kilos on the tow ball. And I strongly suggest you do that if you are contemplating towing anything heavy. The ride quality does not suffer because the variable rate springs only increase their rate when that additional weight is added to the tow ball. And if you're going to tow, let's say, a 1,500 kilo trailer, then 150 kilos on the ball will be just fine. If you want to tow 2 tonnes, you're going to have to find a trailer that is designed only to exert 150 kilos on the ball, or you're going to have to choose another vehicle. And while we're talking about all that mad engineering down there, let's detain ourselves momentarily on the new 8-speed transmission. It comes only with the diesel engine, and it is uncannily smart. It knows exactly when to shift and when not in many different driving situations. It'll hang on to the gear, you know, when you're sort of cruising downhill with your foot off the gas. Many automatic transmissions just default into a higher and higher gear, and the car tends to roll away, and then you've got to hit the brakes, which disengages the cruise control if you've got that invoked. Not this transmission. It's very good at sensing the gradient you're on and choosing the right gear, not running away. It does nice smooth shifts when you're driving nice and smoothly, and if you're up it for the rent, it just keeps up nicely as well. So it's a really good one-size-fits-all proposition for all the different driving situations that you can be in, and it is a real step up from the 6-speed in the old model. I fear I've detained you for long enough, but there's only one more thing, and it's this. Drive mode selection. You don't always get that in the cheap seats either. You get comfort, sport and eco modes, which are just as they sound, and selecting between them changes the operational parameters of things like the automatic transmission, the steering and the all-wheel drive system. In sport mode, for example, up to 50% of the tractive effort gets shunted to the rear to maximise traction under heavy acceleration. In comfort mode, that drops to up to 35%, and in eco mode, the vehicle defaults to being essentially a front driver to maximise fuel efficiency. The steering weight is also changed when you do that. Obviously, eco is light, comfort is light, sport is somewhat heavier. So you can tweak the driving experience in a very selectable way, and you can do it methodically. You can change it depending on whether you're in traffic or whether you're on a favourite bit of twisty road. And you can certainly have his and hers friendliness engineered into the one package. And incorporating all of that into the base model as well is a real plus. I'm John Cadogan. If you're in the market for a 7-seat SUV, I hope this ersatz tour of the Santa Fe Active was at the very least helpful. If you've got any questions, you can hit me up via the website. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you enjoyed this report. There's plenty more like that to come. Hit the bell notification icon thingy, and I will pester you endlessly upon every new video upload. There's something to look forward to. Thanks for watching.